firstly, just to tell you, Mr. Sanjay, the thing you said about cycling being not good for the economy, just let me tell you a bit history behind it, right? Actually, this was created as a sarcasm against actually the car industry about 50 years back in the Netherlands. There's a history behind it. So you must have seen this meme or joke being circulating in our social media from last few years. We've seen that someone says that it's being said by some employee of Exim Bank India, but then again, someone I say it's said by some Exim Bank employee from Europe. But then basically this was is a sarcasm created against the cycle, not for the cycling industry, but for the against the car industry. Just basically for the cycling part. So but then this thing has circulating, and we see this message circulating in our cycling group. There's a few small thing. There's few very big cycling groups all over India, right? And this message pops up every now and then. And it has actually become a butt of the joke that when people share these kind of jokes, people start actually trolling the person who sends these jokes. The reason is this has been shared like widely since the last 4-5 years. And like what I have noticed is that whenever a person starts cycling, he gets this message and starts sharing it. For me, I look at it a different way. I have seen this message being shared widely since last year. For me, such as I said, mostly people who are getting newly into cycling start sharing it. For me, I look at it as more people actually starting cycling as sharing this message. For me, this actually gives me an impression that more people are getting this cycling. So anyways, thank you again for giving me the floor here to give you this thing, to speak about this thing. I think it will not be just proper where people just see my face. I keep on speaking. I have prepared a small presentation that I'd like to show you, right? And after I show number presentation, I can take in questions and all, right? Okay, just let me know if there's any issues and all, if it's clear, right?
Absolutely clear.
Okay. Like I said, the topic of today's presentation, the choice I have made is sustainable transportation and its importance, right? So going ahead, let's talk about this. What does sustainability mean? Well, there are no universally agreed definition of sustainability. In fact, there are many different viewpoints on this concept and on how it can be achieved. Sustainable is an adjective for something that is able to be sustained. There is something that is bearable and capable of being continued at a certain level. In the end, sustainability can perhaps be seen as the process by which something is kept at a certain level, right? Again, nowadays, because of the environmental and social problems, societies around the world are facing. Sustainability has increasingly been used as a specific way. Nowadays, sustainability is usually defined as a process and actions through which humankind avoids the depletion of natural resources in order to keep an ecological balance that doesn't allow the quality of life of modern societies to decrease. Then what exactly is sustainable development? We're hearing this word development. Well, sustainable development is the idea that human societies must live and meet their needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Specifically, sustainable development is a way of organizing society so that it can exist in the long term. This means taking into account both the imperatives present and those of the future, such as the preservation of the environment and natural resources or social and economic equity. Then a little bit about the sustainable development goals. The sustainable development goals are a blueprint. These were made by the United Nations, comprising of all the 197 countries. This is a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. They address the global challenges we face, including poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. These are 17 sustainable development goals. And here actually, most of these like define specific areas that will not go much into this. These are the sustainable development goals developed by the, promoted by the United Nations. You can have a look at it differently. Today's topic is not on a sustainable development goals, but these are required. We need to know all these things. Then we comes to about transportation. So basically, when we talk about transportation, this is a very basic human need, right? We need to move around for our work and for whatever purpose we need to move around. Then we come to about sustainable transportation. Sustainable transportation refers to the broad subject of transport that is sustainable in the senses of social, environmental, and climate impacts. Components for evaluating sustainability include the particular vehicles. Just a minute. Include the particular vehicles that we use for road, water, air transport, the sources of energy, and the infrastructure used to accommodate the transport. Type of vehicles. Sustainable transportation refers to any means of transportation that is green and has low impact on environment. Sustainable transportation is also about balancing our current and future needs. All right. So I'll just show you here a small this photograph here. If you can look at this part, start from there are two parts into it. One is the part where you can see the feet. That basically is not the we do not confuse this as carbon footprint. This is the space in square meters required by per occupant. And at top part, you can see some balloons. The balloons actually depict the grams of carbon dioxide per person travel. Right. On the left side are the most dirtiest kinds of transportation, and on the right side are the most cleanest part. Right. You can see that the average Victorian car, old style cars. Basically, when one person is for the 243.8 is basically the amount of carbon dioxide released by per person per kilometer. Then we can again come back to the part. We can see the part called train. See, when you come to the train, even though train is a big vehicle, big mode of transport, on the below part you can see the foot size is very small. It's 0.5 because that basically depicts how much space a person is occupying. And the balloon says 28.6. That is the amount of carbon dioxide every person releases. So then again we come to the you can see the electric vehicles are there, then bicycle, then walking. And when you can see when it comes to the terms of electric vehicle, you can see the feet size is very big, even though the carbon release is negligible. Carbon dioxide release is negligible because that's a vehicle, right? It takes up space. 9.7 square meters is the space that it occupies. It doesn't release any carbon dioxide. Then it comes to cycles. It is 1.5 square meters per person, and it's walking. So when you talk about sustainable mode of transportation, we can from this picture we can just understand that from the train onwards, most of these are what we call sustainable modes of transportation. And when it comes to sustainable modes of transportation, those are motorcycle, dual occupancy cars, all electric vehicles, average motor Victorian cars. Basically, we are talking about land transport here, right? Public transport, people that we use for moving for places and all. We're not talking into aeroplanes and ships and all those. Just talking on fixed and on these kinds of transportation. So then I'll just give you a brief about why I'm talking about all these things, why I'm talking about sustainable modes of transport. As you have, Mr. Sanjay has already introduced me as a bicycle mayor of Guwahati. I'll just let you know why I'll be talking on these parts. But before that, I'll just give you, you can see on my screen, there are 2 points here. One is 40th rank in the world, and second is a 10th rank in India. Don't be fooled by these numbers, because when you talk about the 40th rank in the world, that is for Guwahati specifically. Guwahati ranks 40th most polluted city in the world. This is as per the World Air Quality Report 2020 by IQAR, that's an international organization. And the second part, again, don't look at a rank here, don't look at full by it. Basically, this is from last year's report. Guwahati was said to be the 10th hottest cities in India by Skymet Weather. This is actually on August 5th, 2020. Guwahati recorded the highest temperature of 38.6 degrees Celsius since the records being started being kept since 1949. Since 70 years, these are basically, I'm not giving you the actual the figures and all. I'm just showing you how these ranks actually are affecting Guwahati specifically, right? Then when we talk about pollution, here we all understand when we talk about these two ranks, we need to understand that the pollution, Guwahati being said the most polluted city, and we also understand how pollution and release of carbon dioxide and all affects our the temperature in our cities. So just wanted to show you like how much pollution is caused by the transportation sector here. This is basically from an American study. It shows basically the amount of transport as a percentage each sector of our economy contributes to the pollution. The transportation sector actually contributes about 29% of the pollution, but this is an overall thing. And electricity production contributes about 25%, industry about 23%, commercial and residential areas 13%, agriculture 10%. In this whole thing, transportation contributes the highest amount of pollution. But then when it comes to about urban areas, this percentage increased to about 70%. Right? Then again, I'll just show you one more pie chart here. This is about the carbon dioxide release per sector in the transportation sector itself. Right? You can see the least amount is by the cargo vehicles, 4%, then 11% by the ships and all, 11% by the air transport. Then again, 34% there are smaller cargo vehicles and 40% by private motor vehicles. These are basically private motor vehicles that contributes 40% of the pollution. The other thing is why people here again. I'll just show you here again. This is the thing. I'll go back here. Like I started. This is the I showed here the dirtiest vehicles and the cleanest vehicles. The sustainable mode of transportation starts on a train onwards towards walking and all. I just breaking it down again. But the thing is, why do people do not take up sustainable transportation? There must be some reason to it, right? First thing, our cities are not designed for movement of people. This is designed basically for movement of vehicles. This is how actually our cities are being designed. Most city traffic engineers design is for keeping the car in focus. You can see on the sidelines the pedestrians on the left side, and cycles, the buses, then trams, and all, again buses and trams are the sideline. On the below part, you can see how cities should be designed. It should be equitably designed, right? Spaces for pedestrians, spaces for cycles, spaces for buses, metro, trams here. Just to let you know, the trams, even though when we talk about trams in India specifically, the idea comes about the Kolkata trams. But let me tell you, the trams will need to be overhauled. There are a lot of trams, modern tram designs being still in operation in many modern cities in Europe. You know, these are some of the most sustainable and clean modes of transportation. Then buses as well. We have our own perceptions looking into buses and all. Today, the topic, I will not get much into the topic about car, buses and trams and all. I'll be specifically talking about cycles, right? Then again, initially I said, why do people not take up sustainable mode of transport? This is because one of the reasons, because our city streets are not designed for movement of vehicles, movement of people, but rather the movement of vehicles. The cities are basically focused on the movement of private vehicles, private motor vehicles. Then there are other things like people complain about the weather is not conducive. People keep on saying that it is humid, it is dusty, right? The terrain is not conducive. The thing is, for the first part, I'd like to say that no, for both these parts, I'd like to say that no city is perfect, or no city has a perfect terrain or weather for cycling. We may be complaining about the weather here, but then again, our choices are actually contributing to our weather becoming more worse day by day. It's us we need to choose, right? We cannot just blame the weather here. Regarding our terrain, can't help it. We just can't flatten Guwahati here. We cannot flatten Guwahati or any other hilly place. The terrain will remain as it is. But then again, for this, there are cycles with gears that can help us climb those hills. But then again, I have seen people cycling in cycling for work, cycling using cycles as a mode of transport in hilly areas as well. I have seen being a lot of people doing in Kohima. I've seen people in Itanagar. I've seen other places, hilly areas, not just in not in the places, other places all across in India and other places across the world also. Right? I believe that's the reason I believe these are overhyped. The weather and terrain are overhyped. We need not focus on these things. There are ways to overcome it.